Hi there, my friend. Thrilled you've made it to my channel. If you're visiting for the first time, tap that subscribe button and share this with someone who could use a little entertainment. It helps keep the lights on here. And please, tell me where in the world you're watching from. All right, let's jump in. Picture it. You're halfway through dinner when your wife wanders into the kitchen, tosses her phone onto the table, and, without even breaking stride, announces she'll be heading to Las Vegas for her birthday weekend with her girlfriends. No request, no conversation. Just a flat declaration, delivered as casually as a weather update. That's exactly how my Tuesday night went. She stood there with a smug little smile, clearly anticipating my reaction. The same woman who once asked for my input on every decision now behaved as if my opinion didn't count, especially when it involved a 4-day Vegas trip with the most toxic group of people in her life. "It's happening whether you like it or not," she said, eyes glued to her phone, scrolling through what was obviously a hotel booking. "My birthday, my choice. Don't even try to talk me out of it." I set down my fork and studied her closely. This wasn't the woman I had married. This was someone molded by a circle of newly single women, each one bitter, each one preaching the doctrine of live your best life and never let a man have a say. "Which friends?" I asked evenly. She rolled her eyes so hard, it was a wonder she didn't injure herself. "The usual. And before you start one of your judgmental rants, they're all successful women who know how to have fun." Successful? Right. One taught yoga while promoting herself online with suggestive, barely clothed photos. Another hadn't worked in years, living off her divorce settlement. The last had burned through her entire payout in less than half a year. These were now her role models. "How much is this little trip going to cost us?" I asked. "That's not your concern anymore," she snapped. "I make my own money. I can spend it however I want." Conveniently omitted from her statement was the fact that her own money lived in our shared accounts. Our credit cards bore both names, and all of our financial obligations were mutual. Her income was just as tied to me as mine was to her, and lately she'd been burning through it like it would vanish if she didn't. "We agreed to discuss major expenses first," I reminded her. She laughed in my face. "Major expenses? It's a birthday weekend, not buying a house. Stop being so controlling." There it was, that magic word her friends had been feeding her for months. Apparently, asking to be included in large financial decisions made me controlling. Wanting my wife to spend time with people who didn't openly hate men? Also, controlling. "I'm not controlling," I told her. "I'm being responsible. We have a mortgage, car payments, and you just bought a brand new wardrobe last month." She flicked her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "Whatever. I'm going. End of story. The girls and I are going to have the time of our lives, and there's nothing you can do about it." She turned to leave, but then stopped, tossing a final look over her shoulder with a smirk. "Oh, and don't wait up. If we're having too much fun, we might just stay longer." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a birthday celebration. It was a test, her way of seeing how far she could push, how much disrespect I'd tolerate. She wanted to know if I'd crack, beg, plead, or blow up like some insecure man. What she didn't realize was simple. I don't beg. I don't plead. And I don't throw tantrums. When someone shows me their real character, I believe them. When someone makes it clear they have no respect for me or our marriage, I take note. In the days that followed, she dialed up the defiance. She was constantly on the phone with her friends, laughing about their Vegas itinerary, speaking just loudly enough for me to catch phrases like "finally free" and "not answering to anyone." She booked the most expensive suite at a luxury hotel, made dinner reservations at places where the check rivaled a month's rent, and scheduled spa treatments that could feed a family for a week. Every single charge landed on our joint credit card. The next time I tried to bring up the budget, she cut me off sharply. "I don't care what you think about my friends, and I don't care what you think about this trip. I'm celebrating my birthday in Vegas, and that's final." It wasn't just defiance, it was a challenge. She'd drawn her battle line and made it clear my opinion meant nothing. To her, our marriage wasn't a partnership anymore. It was a one-sided regime, and she was in command. Fine. If my input no longer mattered, she was about to learn I didn't need her blessing to make moves of my own. If she wanted to turn this into a game of control, I was ready to play. While she plotted her so-called birthday escape, I was preparing an entirely different strategy. She thought she was about to give me a lesson in not controlling her. Instead, she was about to get a first-hand lesson in consequences. The day before her trip, she packed like someone making a break for freedom, cramming her luggage with designer dresses, luxury heels, and the jewelry I'd once given her for birthdays and anniversaries. Every flashy piece was destined for display in front of the same friends who fed her worst impulses. "Don't forget to miss me while I'm gone," she tossed over her shoulder with a sly grin as she hauled the suitcase toward her car. "Oh, trust me, I will," I replied, smiling easily. And I truly would, though not in the way she thought. The moment her taillights disappeared down the road, I went back inside and finally tackled something I'd been putting off for far too long. I pulled out every financial document we had, bank statements, credit card bills, and account records. What I found made my heart pound. In just 3 months, she had chewed through more than $8,000, all under the pretense of self-care and personal growth. The numbers told the story: costly spa treatments, marathon shopping sessions, extravagant dinners with her friends, overpriced online classes she never finished, and multiple gym memberships she never once used. But that was only scratching the surface. Hidden among the paperwork was proof that she had secretly opened 2 additional credit cards, both maxed out, on purchases I'd never even heard about. More designer handbags, expensive jewelry, high-end beauty products, and a string of impulsive online buys filled those statements. The woman who used to clip coupons and hunt for grocery sales had transformed into a financial wrecking ball, and I'd been blind to the destruction until now. As I sat there piecing together the mess, my phone lit up with her first posts from the airport. There she was, showing off a first-class boarding pass in one hand and a glass of champagne in the other. Apparently, Coach was no longer good enough for her new image. By that evening, her social media was a running highlight reel. Pictures of a suite at the Bellagio, champagne bottles that cost more than our monthly grocery bill, and a meal at a celebrity chef's restaurant where one plate equaled a week's worth of food for us. Then came the gut punch, a video of her in a new dress I'd never seen before, dancing with some unknown man in a roped-off nightclub section while her friends whooped and cheered. The caption read, "Finally free to be myself." I saved everything, every image, every clip, every tag from her friends' accounts. I had a feeling it would all be important later. The next morning, my neighbor knocked on the door with the uneasy look of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "Hey, I normally don't get in the middle of things," he started. "But my brother works at the bank downtown. He saw your wife there last week asking how to separate accounts and move funds." A heavy weight settled in my stomach. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment Vegas escape. She had been setting up a financial hit on our marriage. While I was paying our bills, she was planning her getaway. I thanked him and called the bank immediately. They confirmed that she'd tried to transfer money from our joint savings into her personal account. The only thing that stopped it was the rule requiring both signatures for any transfer over $5,000. She had been attempting to drain half our savings to bankroll her Vegas trip and whatever came after it. That afternoon, I got another call, this time from a friend in the hotel industry who'd been following her posts. "You know that suite she's in? $1,200 a night, 4 nights, and those restaurants? They're the kind where people go just to prove they can afford it." This wasn't just spending for enjoyment, it was spending as theater. She was making a public statement that our marriage and financial stability were just stage props for her new persona. By the second day, the spectacle had only grown. Her feed was packed with shots of private cabanas at pool parties, designer shopping bags stacked like trophies, and photos of her gambling with towers of chips. The comments from her friends were nothing but praise, telling her to live her truth and congratulating her for escaping negative vibes, as if she'd survived some kind of abuse rather than betraying her vows. That's when I began making my own calls, first to our accountant, then to an attorney, and finally to the credit card companies. If she wanted this to be a financial war, I needed to know the extent of her firepower and how to protect myself. The lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. What she was doing could be considered dissipation of marital assets. The hidden accounts, the secret spending, the blocked transfer attempt, each one was a red flag in divorce court. "Keep records of everything," he told me. "Every charge, every post, every time she hides money. This isn't just carelessness, it's a pattern." On the third day, she finally called. Not to check on me, not to apologize, but to complain that one of her credit cards had been declined at an upscale jewelry store. "Can you call the bank and raise my limit?" she asked. She asked the question as casually as if she were reminding me to pick up milk on the way home. "Which card?" I said, though the answer was obvious. "The Chase card," she replied. I was trying to treat myself to something nice, and it was humiliating when it got declined in front of my friends. Humiliating. That was her concern, saving face in front of the same people who had cheered her on while she dismantled our marriage, while I was back home wading through the financial wreckage she had left behind. "How much have you spent so far?" I asked. "That's irrelevant. Just increase the limit." "It's very relevant. We agreed on a budget for this trip." She gave me that condescending little laugh I'd heard before she even left. "A budget? I'm not some teenager on an allowance. I'm a grown woman celebrating my birthday." "With our money," I reminded her. "My money," she snapped back. "I earn it. I spend it. That's all there is to it." It was in that moment I knew the marriage was over, not because of the money, not because of the trip, but because she had erased all respect for me, for the marriage, and for the idea of partnership. In her mind, she was already single. I was simply a roommate she hadn't bothered to evict. "Enjoy the rest of your trip," I said evenly. "That's it? You're not going to fix the card?" "Number, I'm not." She hung up hard enough that the click seemed to echo. Within minutes, my phone lit up with a barrage of angry texts, accusing me of being controlling, petty, manipulative. The wording was almost identical to the toxic slogans I'd seen in her group chats. Her friends were clearly feeding her the lines. What she didn't grasp was that every message, every purchase, every public post was laying the foundation for my case. She was documenting her irresponsibility and lack of respect better than I ever could have. While she uploaded champagne-soaked videos from Vegas, I was preparing for her return. She thought she was teaching me to accept her independence. She was about to learn that independence comes with consequences, and that disrespect carries a price she couldn't pay. Her final post from the trip showed her and her friends clinking glasses of overpriced champagne, captioned, "Best birthday ever. Some people are worth keeping, others are just holding you back." Perfect. She had just publicly declared I was dead weight. That caption was going to look excellent as evidence. While she treated our marriage like the setup for a joke, I was becoming someone she wouldn't recognize. The man she'd left behind wouldn't be the man waiting for her. My first destination, a law office. I walked into the conference room carrying a folder that could make any divorce attorney's day. Neatly organized bank statements, credit card records, screenshots of her posts, and proof of her hidden financial moves. The lawyer flipped through the stack, then leaned back in his chair. "This is one of the clearest examples of financial misconduct I've seen in a while," he said. "She's practically written your argument for you." For the next 2 hours, we built a plan, dividing assets, securing joint accounts, and, as he put it, strategically positioning for the divorce. Every move was legal, defensible, and fully supported by her own actions. "The strongest point in your favor," he explained, "is the consistent pattern of deception and reckless spending. Courts take a very dim view of spouses who hide assets or make big financial moves without their partner's consent." When I left, I had a clear legal strategy and the contact information for a financial advisor who specialized in asset protection. Next stop, our bank. The branch manager pulled me aside and quietly admitted that my wife had been in multiple times over the past month, asking about transfer limits, how to set up automatic withdrawals from our joint savings to her personal account, and ways to move large amounts without my authorization. That confirmed my suspicions. Vegas wasn't just a birthday trip. It was a trial run for her exit, and she'd been preparing to drain as much money as she could before walking out. The rest of the day was spent locking down our finances. I opened accounts in my name only, cataloged every shared asset, and created a detailed inventory of all joint possessions. If she wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I knew exactly what was at stake. When I sat down with the financial advisor, she didn't mince words. "Your wife has put you in a dangerous position," she said, "but she's been so reckless that securing your assets should be straightforward." We drew up a plan to protect my credit, safeguard my savings, and make sure her spending spree couldn't destroy my future. It wasn't a step I'd ever pictured myself taking, but she'd made certain I had no other option. Her online presence had taken a turn for the extreme, each day bringing more brazen displays than the last. By the third morning of her getaway, she was showcasing an extravagant shopping spree that must have drained a serious chunk of our funds. Photos flaunted luxury handbags, designer stilettos, costly jewelry, and high-end clothing, items she'd likely wear only once before shoving them to the back of her wardrobe. But the post that truly grabbed my attention was a video from an exclusive spa where she lounged in the middle of a treatment with a price tag higher than what most people pay for a month's car note. Her caption read, "Pampering myself like the queen I am. Life's too short to accept less than what you deserve." Queen. She was anointing herself royalty while tearing through our shared finances as if they were play money, all while broadcasting her disregard for our marriage to anyone with an internet connection. That evening, my phone lit up with a call from her sister, who had been following the same social media trail. Her voice carried a note of concern. "This isn't her," she said. "She's always liked nice things, but this is excessive. And those women she's with, they're bad news. Between them, they've got 3 divorces, and they seem to take joy in pushing other women to wreck their relationships." "I'm aware," I told her flatly. After a pause, her sister asked, "So, what are you planning to do when she's back?" "Whatever needs to be done." Another brief silence. "She's throwing away a good man for, what, a few days of parading around Vegas?" By then, the picture was crystal clear to me. This wasn't about Vegas, it was about respect. She'd decided my voice had no place in major decisions affecting our marriage. She'd decided our financial stability was less important than her social image. She'd decided my feelings didn't matter in her version of happiness. These were not the choices of someone working to fix a relationship. They were the moves of someone who had already walked out emotionally, waiting only for the right moment to make it official. On the 4th day of her trip, I put into motion the plan I'd been forming since the moment she left. I contacted each credit card company and lowered the limits on our shared accounts, enough to slow the financial bleeding while she was still in Vegas. 2 hours later, my phone exploded with angry messages. One of her cards had been declined at an expensive restaurant right as she was trying to impress her friends by footing the bill. "What did you do?" she demanded in a voice message dripping with fury. "I'm humiliated. My card got declined in front of everyone." Good. Maybe a taste of embarrassment would give her the slightest sense of what it felt like to watch her publicly trash our marriage while blowing through money like a lottery winner on a losing streak. "Fix this right now, or there will be consequences when I get home," she threatened in another recording. Consequences. She was threatening me for protecting our finances from her recklessness. The absurdity was almost laughable. I didn't respond. Instead, I used that time to visit our insurance agent, mortgage lender, and the firms managing our joint investments. If she intended to leave this marriage, she wasn't taking my financial security along with her. That night, she called directly. Her tone had shifted, less venom, more calculated charm. "Baby, I don't know what's wrong with the cards, but it's so embarrassing. Can you just call and sort it out? I promise I'll be more careful when I get home." Baby. She was using the pet name and syrupy voice she used when she wanted something. But her promises meant nothing now. I already knew exactly who she was. "The cards work fine," I told her. "The limits are just lower now." "Lower? Why would you do that without asking me?" "For the same reason you booked this trip without asking me. Sometimes you have to make unilateral decisions to protect yourself." Her silence said more than any words could. For the first time, she seemed to understand that I wasn't the pushover she'd imagined. "When I get home, we're going to have a serious talk," she said. her sweetness slipping back into steel. "Yes," I answered evenly, "we will." What she didn't grasp was that I was already well ahead of her. While she'd been curating her online image and burning through cash, I had been preparing for the talk that would end our marriage. She thought she'd return to the same man she'd left behind. She was in for a surprise. Her flight was scheduled to land at 3:47 p.m. on Sunday. I knew because I'd been tracking her itinerary, not from concern, but to ensure my timing was exact. At 8 a.m. that morning, I made the calls I'd lined up all week, first to the bank, then to every credit card issuer, and finally to the firm managing our joint investments. By 10 a.m., her name was gone from every account I had the legal authority to control. The shared accounts stayed open to both of us, but I transferred my portion of the savings into a separate account to block any surprise withdrawals. Every step I took was entirely legal and well within my rights as a spouse protecting his assets. By noon, I had confirmation that every change had been executed. She didn't notice anything was different until she tried paying for her trip home with our credit cards. Parking fees, ride shares, airport snacks, and her usual post-vacation pick-me-up shopping spree, every single charge came back declined. Meanwhile, I was in my office, flipping through printed screenshots of every post she'd made while she was away. 4 days of flaunting our marital breakdown online, 4 days of draining thousands from our accounts, 4 days of portraying me as nothing more than the barrier between her and her happiness. Then my phone buzzed with a text, landed. Getting Uber home. Can't wait to sleep in my own bed. Her own bed, interesting choice of phrasing. Half an hour later, her name lit up my screen. This time I answered without hesitation. "What's going on with my cards?" she snapped, skipping any greeting. "None of them work, and I'm stranded at the airport." "They're fine," I replied evenly. "You just don't have permission to use them anymore." "What do you mean I'm not authorized? They're my cards too." "Actually, most are in my name with you listed as an authorized user. I removed that authorization." The silence was so long I glanced at my phone to check if the call had dropped. When she spoke again, her voice shook with rage. "You can't do this. You can't leave me stuck here." "I'm not leaving you stuck," I said. "You have your personal account. Use that. Be independent." "There's only about $300 in there," she shot back. "That won't even get me home." "Then maybe you shouldn't have blown through $8,000 in 4 days trying to impress your friends." Another pause. I could almost hear the calculations in her head as she tried to process what was happening. "This is financial abuse," she yelled. "You're trying to control me." "No," I told her. "I'm protecting myself from someone who tried to empty half our savings and has been spending recklessly for months. That's not control, it's self-defense." "I wasn't stealing," she argued. "That money belongs to both of us." "Exactly," I said, "which means moving it without asking is attempted theft, and burning through thousands without a discussion? That's financial betrayal." Airport announcements blared faintly through the phone, and I knew panic was setting in. Good. Panic might finally force her to see what she'd done to this marriage. "Please," she said, her tone softening, "just turn the card back on so I can get home and then we'll talk." "We'll talk when you get here," I replied. "Figure out your own way back." Then I hung up. 20 minutes later, she called again, this time in tears. "I booked an Uber, but it's almost $200. That's nearly all I've got left." "Sounds like the going rate for your Vegas performance," I said. "Why are you being so cruel? I just wanted to celebrate my birthday." "By broadcasting our humiliation and spending like we're royalty? That's not celebration, it's sabotage." She cycled through her entire arsenal on that call, crying, shouting, guilt trips, promises to change, even subtle threats about what her friends would say if they knew how I was treating her. None of it worked. I could finally see her for who she was. About an hour later, one of her friends called. "She says she's stuck at the airport crying. You need to fix her cards," the friend insisted. "She's not stuck," I said. "She has money. She just doesn't want to use hers after burning through ours." "You're being controlling and abusive," the friend accused. "No," I said. "I'm being responsible, something she gave up on a long time ago." Then I ended that call too. By evening, she walked through the door looking drained, dragging her overpriced luggage behind her. Almost immediately, she launched into a tirade about the humiliation of declined cards and how her friends now saw me as a controlling tyrant. Good, I told her. Let them think that. Their opinions stopped mattering the moment they encouraged you to tear this marriage apart. She just stood there, staring at me like she was meeting me for the first time. The man who once absorbed her grievances in silence apologized for things he never caused and begged for her time and approval. He was gone. "We need to talk," she announced, setting her bags on the floor. "Yes, we do," I answered evenly. "But first, you should understand something. There's nothing wrong with the cards. You simply don't have authorization to use them anymore because I can't trust you with our finances." "You can't just cut me off from our money," she snapped. "I haven't cut you off from anything," I replied. "Our joint accounts are still open to both of us, but you can no longer pile up credit card debt or shift large sums without me knowing." She pulled out her phone and began scrolling, almost certainly checking our accounts to see what else had changed. "This is insane," she muttered. "You're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal. You tried to move $5,000 from our savings without telling me. You opened credit cards behind my back. You spent $8,000 in just 4 days, while posting online about how I was holding you back. Tell me, what would you call that?" For the first time since she walked in, she had no quick retort. The evidence was undeniable, and we both knew it. "I want a divorce," she finally declared, as though delivering a threat. I nodded without a pause. "I assumed you would. I've already spoken to a lawyer." Her face froze in disbelief. She had expected pleading, bargaining, maybe promises to work things out. Instead, she found me already prepared. "You've already seen a lawyer?" she asked, her voice lower now. 4 days ago," I said, "right after you posted that video calling yourself a queen and claiming certain people were just holding you back." In that moment, it hit her. Every post, every purchase, every public humiliation she'd orchestrated had been documented. Her Vegas trip hadn't proven her independence. It had built the case for why our marriage was done. The woman who had left believing she was teaching me a lesson about respecting her freedom was now about to live with that freedom, completely. Over the next hour, she cycled through every emotional weapon she had, crying, shouting, bargaining, threatening. It was like watching the stages of grief, except she was mourning the loss of her financial control. "You can't just divorce me because I went on a trip with my friends," she protested, pacing the room like a trapped animal. "This isn't about a trip," I said. "It's about trust, respect, and financial responsibility. 3 things you've thrown away." She stopped pacing and glared. "My friends were right. You're controlling. A real man would support his wife's independence." "A real wife," I countered, "would involve her husband in major financial choices instead of hiding money and maxing out cards." "I wasn't stealing. That money is half mine." I walked to my desk, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the coffee table. Inside was a collection of bank statements, credit card bills, hidden account records, and screenshots from her Vegas escapade. "Let's talk about what's really yours," I said, spreading the papers out. "In the last 6 months, you've spent over $15,000 on what you call self-care and personal development, while I paid for the mortgage, utilities, car, and insurance." Her face paled. "You've been tracking my spending?" "I've been trying to understand why our accounts kept being drained while you complained that we couldn't afford important things." She picked up one of the statements and stared at it, as if seeing it for the first time. "Some of these were for both of us," she said weakly. "Really? Which ones? The $500 spa day with your friends? The designer handbags you stash in your closet? The gym membership you've used 3 times? Each question landed hard. She had no rebuttal. The numbers spoke for themselves. "Fine," she muttered, tossing the paper down. "Maybe I overspent, but that doesn't mean you get to block my access to our money." It was only now that she seemed to fully grasp that her choices had consequences she couldn't sidestep. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "That's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore. You've made it clear that my opinion doesn't matter, our marriage doesn't matter, and our financial stability doesn't matter. Now you can have all the independence you want." "You're ending our marriage over money?" she demanded. I laughed, but without a trace of warmth. "I'm not ending anything. The moment you decided to broadcast our marriage troubles for the world to see, while draining our accounts into the negative, you made your choice. You confirmed it when you attempted to quietly pull money from our savings without telling me. You sealed it once more when you declared that my opinion held no weight in your decision-making." She sat wordless, her gaze locked on the spread of papers between us, each one documenting a fresh instance of her financial deceit. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "My friend told me you'd try to control me financially if I started standing up for myself." "Your friends," I said flatly. "Let's talk about them for a moment." I unlocked my phone and scrolled until I reached the screenshots I'd saved. Here's one of their posts from 3 days ago. "Men are intimidated by successful women who know their worth." Here's another. "The right man will support your dreams without asking questions." And the best of the bunch, "If he's worried about money, he's not the one." With each quote I read aloud, her posture stiffened, her discomfort growing. She knew exactly what kind of poison her friends had been feeding her. "Between the lot of them, they've been divorced 7 times, I added. 7 failed marriages. And they've been pushing you to blow up yours so you can join their little club of resentful, single, middle-aged misery." "They were helping me be independent," she murmured weakly. "No," I corrected. "They were trying to drag you down to where they are. And you let them." Tears began to well again, but this time it wasn't an act. The performance was gone. She finally seemed to grasp the damage for what it was. "I didn't want it to spiral like this," she whispered. "But it did," I said. "And what's worse, even after I tried to talk to you, you just kept doubling down." "So, what happens now?" Her voice trembled. "Now," I told her, "you get to experience actual independence. You cover your own bills, make your own financial calls, and live with the fallout, without me cleaning up after you." Her eyes lifted, fear flashing in them. "You're really going to divorce me?" "You ended this marriage yourself," I said. "You just never filed the paperwork." "I'm not ready for that." "Please," she begged, reaching for my hand. "I'll cut up the cards, drop those friends, do whatever you ask." I pulled my hand back, firm, not cruel. "It's too late. You can't unspend the money. You can't erase the public humiliation, and you can't rebuild trust once it's burned down." "What about counseling? What about one last chance?" "I gave you plenty of chances. Every time I raised concerns about our finances. Every time I asked you to reconsider your spending. Every time I reminded you to think about how your actions affected us. You ignored it all." She stayed there, weeping, and for the first time I could tell she understood there was no clever way out, no emotional manipulation left to try. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "That's not my problem anymore. You're independent, remember? Figure it out." "You're going to make me homeless?" "I'm not making you anything. You made these choices. Now you live with them." For the next hour, she cycled through every tactic she knew. Promises to change, threats to trash my name online, attempts at seduction. None of it worked. I'd finally seen her for who she truly was, and there was no going back. "The lawyer will be in touch about the divorce," I told her as she collected her belongings. "This isn't over," she said, her voice snapping back to its sharper edge. "Yes, it is, and tomorrow you'll understand exactly how final this is." She slammed the door on her way out. 20 minutes later, I stood at the window watching her load her Vegas trip luggage into the car. No doubt she was heading to one of those same friends who'd cheered her on while she destroyed our marriage. Perfect. Let them stew in their misery together. 3 weeks went by before I saw her again. She was on my front walk, crying, pleading for forgiveness. But by then, the legal process was already in motion, unstoppable. She'd been served at her friend's apartment, the envelope containing not only the divorce papers, but a detailed record of every hidden expense, every secret credit card, every unauthorized attempt to raid our savings, each one logged as proof of financial misconduct. "Please," she sobbed from the walkway. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this." I looked at her through the glass. The same woman who once called herself a queen was now facing the reality of what her freedom had truly cost her. Her so-called friends had stopped inviting her over after just 2 weeks. Her credit cards were maxed out and demanding payment, and her lawyer had made it clear just how deep the trouble ran. "The papers are already filed," I called out. "You've been served. My lawyer confirmed it." "I can't get a lawyer. I can't afford anything. Please, just talk to me." That was when I finally opened the door, not out of compassion, but to give her the final truth she needed to hear. "You wanted freedom, and now you've got it. You wanted to make choices without your spouse's input. Well, congratulations, you're standing alone now." "I love you," she blurted desperately. "No, you love the financial stability I brought into your life. That's a very different thing." She made a move to slip past me into the house, but I stepped out and shut the door firmly behind me. "The court date is set for next month," I told her in an even voice. "My lawyer has compiled every bit of evidence of your financial misconduct, hidden credit cards, secret transfer attempts, reckless spending. It's all there." Her face went pale. What does that mean?" "It means you'll be held responsible for the debt you piled up. It means the judge will see exactly who caused the collapse of this marriage. And it means your Vegas trip is going to end up costing you far more than you ever dreamed." She sank down onto the sidewalk, finally realizing she had reached a situation she couldn't charm, talk, or manipulate her way out of. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I was completely wrong about everything." "Yes," I replied, "you were. And being wrong doesn't erase the damage you've done." 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. The court ordered her to repay the money she had taken from our shared accounts, assume all the debt tied to her secret credit cards, and cover my attorney fees. The friends who had cheered her on to live her truth were nowhere to be found when she needed help cleaning up the wreckage their encouragement had helped create. I kept the house, my stable income, and my self-respect. She walked away with the independence she claimed to want, along with a crushing load of debt and a harsh lesson in what happens when you mistake a spouse's patience for weakness. Every so often, I still see her posts online. No more glamorous shots from luxury hotels or high-end restaurants. No captions about being a queen or cutting loose anyone who holds her back. Just a woman juggling 2 jobs to pay off the bill for her 4-day Vegas freedom celebration. The last time she drove past the house, she slowed, staring at the life she had traded away for a weekend of showing off in front of women who didn't care enough to stand by her when things fell apart. Independence, she's learned, carries a heavy price tag, and some lessons can only be learned by paying it in full.